hand closes around a small ivory mammoth. The object fits inside the palm. Its curved back presses against the skin. Tiny legs descend from a heavy body. A short tail appears at one end. At the other, a trunk bends toward the ground. The mammoth is scarcely larger than a modern house key, yet someone spent many hours making it. That person lived during the Ice Age, more than 30,000 years ago, in the region now called southern Germany. Outside the cave, real mammoths moved across a cold plain. They were taller than a man standing on another man's shoulders. Their tusks curved forward like polished moons. Their footsteps pressed broad hollows into the frozen ground. Inside the cave, one of those enormous animals had been reduced to a sliver of ivory. The reduction was deliberate. The carver took something immense and made it intimate. The beast that shook the earth could now be held between two fingers. That change of scale may contain one of the earliest great discoveries in the history of sacred art. A painted animal belongs to a wall. A carved animal can travel. It can pass from one hand to another. It can be carried beneath clothing. It can lie near the fire while stories are told. It can accompany a hunter across the valley. When its owner dies, it can enter the earth beside the body. The image has left the cave wall and entered human life. This episode concerns that moment. It is the story of bone and ivory, materials taken from the animal body and turned into some of the earliest known figurative objects. These carvings were small, yet their smallness gave them power. They could remain close to the person who carried them. Their meaning could move. The portable sacred object had arrived. During the Upper Paleolithic period, the people of Europe worked with materials drawn directly from the creatures around them. Stone made a fine cutting edge, but bone offered another quality. Bone had once supported a living body. Antler had grown from the head of an animal. Ivory came from the tusk of a mammoth that had crossed the same ground as the carver. These materials possessed a biography before the artist touched them. A modern sculptor may order a block from a supplier and complain about delivery. The Ice Age carver faced a less bureaucratic arrangement. The material had belonged to something that breathed. That fact matters. An animal image carved from animal substance creates a bond between subject and material. A mammoth shaped from mammoth ivory is no ordinary representation. The beast appears through part of its own body. Its substance survives after its flesh has vanished. The object stands at the threshold between relic and image. We cannot know exactly what the carving meant to its maker. No written explanation survives. No priest left a handbook in the cave stating that the mammoth figurine was to be held at dusk while facing north. Prehistory keeps its mouth firmly closed. Yet the objects remain, and they permit careful judgment. They tell us that the earliest sculptors understood material choice. They understood scale. They understood that an image could be detached from a fixed place and made to follow a human life. Most strikingly, they understood that death could be turned into form. Bone is what remains. After hide decays, bone persists. After the animal voice falls silent, the skeleton holds its shape. Bone carries the memory of posture. A joint records motion. A tooth records age. A tusk records years of growth in rings hidden beneath its surface. For people living close to hunted animals, this persistence could hardly have escaped notice. The dead animal disappeared into hunger, weather, and time. Its bones stayed behind. A carved bone object extended that endurance. Human hands gave the remnant a second shape. The material passed through death, then entered culture. This does not prove that every carved object was religious. A decorated tool might have remained a tool. A pendant could have marked status. A figurine may have served several purposes across its lifetime. The modern urge to divide everything into separate departments becomes especially clumsy here. Religion goes in one drawer, art goes in another. Technology is given a badge and sent downstairs. Ice Age life respected no such filing system. A spear thrower might carry an animal image. A flute might summon music during a gathering. A pendant could identify its wearer while invoking the creature from which it came. Use and meaning lived inside the same object. The distinction between practical and sacred may have been much thinner than our own. Consider the act of carving mammoth ivory. Ivory is hard. It does not surrender easily. The maker first had to separate a workable piece from the tusk. The surface then required scraping with stone. Grooves had to be cut. Curves had to emerge through repeated abrasion. One careless stroke could snap a leg or destroy a muzzle. The small ivory mammoth found at Fogelherd Cave shows astonishing control. Its body has weight. The back rises into a high arch. The trunk is distinct, though the whole figure remains compact enough to disappear inside a closed fist. Vogelherd lies in the lone valley of the Swabian Jura. Excavations there uncovered carved ivory animals from the Aurignacian period. The cave belongs to a group of sites whose deposits preserve some of the oldest known figurative sculptures. UNESCO dates the relevant cave finds in this region broadly between 43,000 and 33,000 years ago. The mammoth was therefore carved by people living near the beginning of the known history of figurative art. Pause over that. The artist did not make a crude block with a trunk scratched onto it as an afterthought. The carver already understood the animal's profile. The body has rhythm. The proportions are compressed, yet recognizable. There is no long apprenticeship visible before this accomplishment. Figurative sculpture appears in the archaeological record already carrying confidence. The first surviving chapters have been torn from the book. When the pages begin, the artist knows what he is doing. This is mildly inconvenient for anyone who prefers human history to behave like a clean diagram. The early sculptor was supposed to begin with a wobbling line, receive several committee reports, then achieve competence after a respectable number of centuries. Instead, the little mammoth walks into history fully formed. Its surface bears a pattern of crossed incisions. Similar markings appear on other Ice Age objects. Their meaning remains uncertain. The marks may have carried symbolic force. They may have recalled wounds or hide. They may have identified a particular tradition of carving. A pattern can serve several meanings at once, especially when no one has yet invented the museum label to stop it. What matters is that the artist did more than reproduce anatomy. The animal has been interpreted. Its body became a field for deliberate signs. The carver joined observation to abstraction. A mammoth was present, yet something beyond an ordinary mammoth had entered the object. Here the sacred begins to flicker. Sacred art seldom rests in mere copying. It takes a visible thing and grants it a second order of meaning. The animal remains itself, but it also becomes a bearer of memory. It may stand for power. It may hold the presence of a clan story. It may serve as the known body of an unseen force. We cannot select one explanation with confidence. We can see the structure of the act. The living mammoth became ivory. Ivory became image. The image entered the hand. Through that sequence, nature crossed into culture without losing its animal character. The hand is central to this story. Cave painting can overwhelm the viewer. A bison stretches across stone. The wall encloses the body. Torchlight makes the animal appear to move. A figurine works through touch. The fingers learn its shape. The thumb passes across its back. The object becomes familiar through repetition. It acquires the warmth of the person holding it. Touch creates a private relation that sight alone cannot provide. A sacred object carried near the body lives within the owner's personal space. It does not wait in a distant chamber. It travels through hunger. It feels the movement of walking. Smoke settles into its grooves. Over time, the object may acquire a polish created by human contact. Its edges soften. Small scratches record use. The owner changes the object by keeping it close. The object may also change the owner. A hunter touching the figure before departure could recall a story attached to it. A child receiving it from an elder could inherit more than carved ivory. The image might carry a duty, a warning, or a bond with the dead. Portable art makes tradition graspable. That is no metaphor in the decorative sense. Tradition could now be physically placed in a hand. Christianity would later place relics within small containers. A pilgrim might carry a medal bearing the image of a saint. A fragment associated with a holy person could be housed in precious metal, then worn close to the chest. The theology differs radically from Ice Age belief. The human instinct behind proximity remains recognizable. Sacred presence is often made portable. A fixed sanctuary gathers a people into one place. A portable object allows something of the sanctuary to depart with them. The person leaves the cave, yet the carved animal travels beside him. The object becomes a pocket-sized center. It creates a small zone of remembered order around the bearer. This may help explain the care invested in such tiny works. Their size reflected neither laziness nor lack of ambition. Smallness was their function. A portable object must submit to the dimensions of the body. It must fit inside a pouch. It must survive movement. It must rest against the chest without becoming a prehistoric workplace injury. The body becomes its architecture. Bone offered other possibilities. Long bird bones are naturally hollow. Their shape lends itself to the making of flutes. At Hohlefels Cave, archaeologists discovered a flute made from the wing bone of a griffon vulture. It had 5 finger holes. Researchers have dated the musical tradition represented by such finds to roughly 40,000 years ago, near the period when modern humans entered this part of Europe. This instrument belongs to the same broad cultural world as the ivory carvings. The connection between carved image and music deserves attention. An ivory animal gives the unseen a body. A bone flute gives the unseen a voice. Air passes through material that once belonged to a bird. Human breath enters the hollow bone. Sound emerges. The instrument joins two creatures within one act. A human breathes into the remnant of a bird, then fills the cave with tones neither could produce alone. It would be reckless to declare the flute a ritual instrument with complete confidence. People make music for pleasure. They also make it for mourning. Music gathers bodies into shared time. Within a cave, sound would have possessed unusual force. The stone chamber catches a note and returns it. A melody becomes larger than the person producing it. The musician stops while the echo continues briefly on its own. For a people attentive to animal voices, weather, and the speech of the human group, such an experience may have carried a sacred charge. Music gives form without giving shape. The flute's song cannot be grasped like the mammoth. It exists through duration. It arrives, fills the air, then dies. Yet the instrument remains. Bone preserves the means by which vanished sound can be summoned again. Picture a gathering inside the cave. The entrance has darkened. A fire burns low. Its light catches a hand holding a pale object. Someone raises the flute. Breath enters bone. A note moves into the chamber. It touches the stone ceiling, then returns from the darkness. The mammoth figurine rests nearby. One sacred form can be held, the other can be heard. Neither is large. Both have altered the cave. The people gathered there occupy the same physical chamber as before, yet art has changed the quality of the space. An animal has appeared without flesh. A voice has appeared without a throat. Representation has opened a second world inside the first. That capacity lies near the center of religion. Religion does not discard the physical world. It takes matter seriously enough to make matter carry more than itself. Stone can mark a threshold. Water can cleanse. Bread can enter a mystery. In the Ice Age cave, bone and ivory may already have served as matter under spiritual pressure. The object remained material. Its meaning exceeded its material. Ivory carried a further association. A mammoth tusk came from an animal of immense size. Its acquisition involved danger even when the tusk came from a carcass. Mammoth ivory was valuable because the source was valuable. The tusk also possessed a striking form before carving began. It grew in a long curve. The material had direction. A sculptor working with ivory had to negotiate that internal structure. The artist could not treat it like shapeless clay. Each carving emerged through conversation with the tusk. The grain imposed limits. The curve suggested forms. A thin projection could break. Art began through obedience to material. This principle will return throughout the history of sacred art. The builder of a cathedral must understand stone. The painter of an icon must accept the discipline of the wooden panel. The maker who ignores material produces an object that feels forced, much as a poor speech sounds when every sentence has been bullied into wearing ceremonial boots. The Ice Age carver knew that matter had a character. That knowledge may have carried religious weight because the material had belonged to a living creature. Ivory was not blank substance. It arrived bearing animal origin. Carving, therefore, involved revelation as much as imposition. The artist discovered the figure inside a material already charged with memory. Death stands behind each object. The mammoth had died. The bird had died. Their remains entered human hands. Yet the object created from those remains was not merely a trophy of mastery. A trophy says, "I defeated this." A sacred image may say, "This remains with us." The difference is profound. Hunting cultures depend upon animal death. Gratitude and fear may coexist within that dependence. The animal gives food through its body, while the same body furnishes tools. The boundary between predator and dependent creature becomes morally charged. A human being may kill the mammoth, yet he cannot create one. He depends upon a life beyond his command. Sacred animal art could express this tension. The beast is pursued, but it is also honored. Its body becomes food. Its image survives. A carved mammoth may have permitted the animal to remain socially present after death. It could enter memory as more than meat. The same hand that cut flesh later carved likeness. This is one reason sacred art often grows around sacrifice. Death creates a wound in the visible order. Ritual gives that wound form. The object does not undo death. It prevents death from becoming mere disappearance. Some Ice Age figurines were pierced or designed to be suspended. Other objects served as pendants. UNESCO's account of the Swabian Jura caves notes personal ornaments alongside figurative carvings and musical instruments. Adornment deserves more respect than modern language usually grants it. To call something decoration often means that it has been dismissed as an extra. Yet personal ornament changes the social body. A pendant announces identity. It places a sign at the point where the individual meets the group. When the pendant comes from animal material, the wearer bears a visible relation to the creature. A tooth can hang at the neck. Its original function was biting. Removed from the jaw, it becomes a sign. Its physical form stays unchanged. Its social meaning has been remade. The person wearing it may claim courage. The tooth may mark adulthood. It could preserve the memory of a hunt. It may signify belonging to a particular people. Once again, certainty escapes us. The structure remains visible. Adornment turns the body into a surface of meaning. The wearer becomes part of the artwork. Modern people sometimes speak as though identity entered history with online profile pages. The Ice Age pendant would like a quiet word. A person wearing carved bone carried meaning in motion. As he walked, the object moved. When he entered firelight, it caught the glow. When he sat among others, the sign remained visible upon his body. Portable sacred art, therefore, produced a different kind of presence from cave painting. The painted animal belonged to a charged location. The pendant belonged to a charged person. One form sacralized place, the other sacralized passage. This distinction shaped later civilization. A shrine gathers holiness into a fixed point. An amulet allows protection to travel. A temple creates a sacred center. A relic procession causes the sacred center to move through the city. The Ice Age figurine begins this long drama at human scale. It permits the holy to walk. The surviving carvings also reveal close attention to animals. The artists knew the slope of a horse's neck. They understood the heavy line of a mammoth's back. A feline figure was given the tension proper to a predator. Observation alone cannot explain the force of these objects, but sacred representation depends upon attention. To represent something is to look at it long enough for its form to enter memory. The Ice Age artist did not work from a photograph. He carried the animal inward, then released it through carving. That internal act joins memory to imagination. A horse running across the valley cannot remain still for study. The artist must gather brief views. The neck turns, the body passes, dust rises. Later, inside the cave, those fragments become a whole. The carved animal emerges from remembered motion. This gives the figurine a peculiar status. It is material, yet it was born from something invisible. The artist's memory had no weight. The ivory gave it weight. Here, art becomes a bridge from interior vision to public object. Something known within one mind can now be touched by another person. The private image becomes shared form. That achievement lies at the foundation of civilization. A people cannot maintain a common world through instinct alone. Memory must be given shape. Belief must become visible. The dead must receive signs. Without shared forms, each generation begins in fog. Portable sacred art allowed culture to resist disappearance. A spoken story depends upon a speaker. A carving can outlive the voice that explained it. Its meaning may change, it may even be forgotten. The object still bears the mark of intention. A groove announces that someone chose to make it. A polished surface records labor. A recognizable animal declares that the maker saw order in the world. The object says that reality can be answered. That may be the deepest sacred claim within these carvings. The world presents an animal. Human beings respond with an image. The animal gives bone. Human beings respond with music. Art begins as an act of reply. This reply does not amount to ownership. The carved mammoth is small enough to possess, while the living mammoth remains beyond control. The object grants intimacy without abolishing majesty. That tension protects the carving from becoming a toy in the modern sense. The figure may fit within the hand, yet it recalls something that could kill the person holding it. Its charm depends upon the distance between its scale and the scale of the living beast. The mammoth in the palm becomes an image of mastery, though mastery remains incomplete. The carver controls ivory. He does not control mammoth existence. Sacred art often lives within this same tension. An icon gives visible form to a holy person, yet the saint is not confined within the panel. A reliquary houses a fragment, yet the divine reality invoked by the relic exceeds its container. The object makes presence available while preserving transcendence. Even the earliest figurine may reflect this pattern. The animal is near. The animal remains greater than the image. Modern museums alter the relation once again. The carved mammoth now rests behind glass. Its temperature is controlled. Its location is fixed. Visitors pass before it under electric light. The object has survived because museums protect fragile things. Yet protection changes experience. The carving can no longer be held. This loss matters. A portable object becomes visually available while physically forbidden. The eye receives what the hand has lost. Museum display encourages us to see the mammoth as sculpture. Its formal quality deserves that attention. The carving is a work of art in the fullest sense. Still, the glass can conceal its original intimacy. This object was made at the scale of touch. To understand it, one must mentally restore the missing hand. A label gives the material. Archaeology gives the date. The human grip gives the object its world. Without that grip, the figurine becomes stranded in prehistory, like a sentence whose verb has vanished. The modern category of portable art is useful. It distinguishes small, movable objects from images fixed to cave walls. Yet the phrase sounds almost comically mild. Portable art suggests a tasteful item suitable for travel. These objects carried far more than aesthetic pleasure. They carried memory across space. They may have bound a person to an animal or linked the living to the dead. Portability changed what art could do. A cave image waited for the viewer. A figurine accompanied him. A wall painting required return. A pendant created continuity during absence. The sacred could survive departure from the sacred place. That discovery would later fill the world with pilgrim tokens. It would place icons in houses. It would send banners into battle. The image had learned to travel. Perhaps it traveled farther than its maker expected. The little mammoth has crossed more than 30,000 years. Its original owner vanished. The language spoken around it disappeared. Every story attached to it was lost. The carving endured. Ivory preserved the pressure of the artist's hand long after the artist's bones entered the earth. The object now stands before people whose lives would have been incomprehensible to its maker. Yet the animal remains recognizable. We still know the curve of its trunk. We still understand that the small figure refers to a creature of greatness. Across an abyss of time, the image succeeds. This is the afterlife of form. Meaning is wounded by history, but form carries a remnant forward. We no longer know the exact ritual. We can still perceive attention. We can see discipline. We can feel the desire to keep something near. The carving becomes a messenger that has forgotten its message while retaining the tone of its voice. For the history of religious art, bone and ivory reveal a severe truth. Sacred art does not require wealth in the later sense. It requires matter joined to meaning. The first sacred objects were fashioned from the remains of living creatures. They were small because human beings had to carry them. Their value came from labor, memory, and proximity. Gold would arrive later. Marble would rise into temples. The earliest sculptor worked with what death left behind. From that remnant, he made presents. Return to the mammoth in the hand. Its living counterpart has vanished from the earth. The Ice Age plain is gone. The carver's name cannot be recovered. Still, the small animal remains. A thumb once rested along its back. Firelight once entered its carved lines. Perhaps a voice explained what it meant. That voice is silent now. The object speaks through its survival. It tells us that human beings learned very early to resist disappearance. They took the bone of the dead and gave it another life. They made an image small enough to carry, yet strong enough to cross millennia. Before sacred art rose above cities, It rested in the palm. Before it commanded crowds, it accompanied one person through the cold. The first holy object may have been something held close while walking into the dark.
Join us again for the grand vision.